Okay, so let's make a start. Well, first of all, a very welcome to everybody joining here at Microsoft 365 UK user group. This is our M365 UK sixth event we're doing this year, and it's a monthly session. So welcome to the November edition. I'm Chirag Patel. I'm one of the organizer here at the M365 UK, and basically, I just wanted to kind of get started on the events. So if I quickly just go to my slides. So we have Toni Pohl with us today from Vienna in Austria, and we also have Ben Howard, who's from UK, and we've got fantastic sessions from both of the speakers. So first one is from Toni, which is going to be covering pretty much the journey from PowerApps to governance, the use cases, the demos, what's best for PowerApps and what's best for the Power Automate, as well as custom solutions. So really looking forward to this session because it's basically got all the breadth that you can imagine for this particular session. So want to welcome Toni for that as well. And then we'll take a kind of a 10-minute break around 5 p.m. GMT here. Very kind of flexible with that, so we tend to sort of work around those times. But then after the break, we'll have Ben Howard with us. We'll be talking about Microsoft project on the web pretty much. So all the features, comparisons, the plans, and basically just how best to work with project plans. And so with that, I will just kind of come to them in a moment. But I'll just kind of quickly introduce a bit myself for those of you who are not aware. I'm Chirag Patel. I live and work in London, UK. techchirag.com is my blog site for getting information on various events as well as M365 UK. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant, pretty much worked with SharePoint from early days, as well as being SQL Server DBA, and really kind of just covering the Microsoft cloud landscape. Not a developer, but tend to work as an IT pro as well as with business. So tend to cover deployments, migrations, or maybe simply just enhancing their existing Microsoft 365 investments. For those of you who are not aware around that, I also speak as well as kind of the sole organizer for M365 UK. So hopefully will be good to see you at some of the online events that's happening a lot these days, especially. The M365 UK, for those of you who are new, I know we got nearly 300 members and we had few, new members joining us this month, so really appreciate, thank you for that. We hold this event every month, and so it tends to be around about middle of the month. And so we've also got two events lined up for December and also into January next year. So we got the SharePoint Spaces by Patrick, as well as Gary Trinder, who's to be covering the Azure side of things on the keyless authentication to access all your apps. But also we got Vasan Opanen and Tomislav Karaflov, who will be also talking about Microsoft Teams, the latest and the tips and tricks, as well as the Dataverse, which basically got renamed earlier this week, and announcements by Microsoft, which is basically formerly a Project Oakdale, the Teams database, if you like. So if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube, so we are recording this session. So M365 UK is our YouTube channel. You can see our past events recordings there as well. Slides will also be available hopefully by this Friday. And do subscribe to and register to the next month's events or even thereafter on meetup.com /M365 UK. So with that, I'll kind of just go into introduce Toni. So Toni and I, we've kind of known each other for good 5 or 6 years. We kind of often bump into some online or even community events, in-person events that happen. It's been around for, I think, over 25 years or thereabouts as an independent IT consultant working for Atwork, who's the CTO there. And so really kind of big welcome to Toni for coming us online in the UK. and sharing his topic on journey from PowerApps to governance. So welcome, Toni, and I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks for invitation, Chirag. It's great to be part of this event here, and I will start presenting my screen. Just a moment here for sharing it, and I hope it should work in a second or so. And I start with a short presentation, so I hope you can already see it.
All good.
Okay, super. So welcome to this short introduction to a journey from PowerApps to governance. I'm an IT consultant. My name is Toni Pohl. I'm working for a company at work. I'm located in Vienna, in Austria, and you can see my contact data here. I'm also active on Twitter, and as Chirag mentioned, we know each other from various community events which happened in Europe in the past years, and also I think we met at some other conferences. And it's always great to be part of another community, so I'm happy to be here. Many thanks for that. So I'm also an MVP for Office development and for Azure. So my journey here is about PowerApps and the management of PowerApps. And I have a short agenda here. So my topics will be Power Platform management. How can you do this with out-of-the-box mechanisms like the portals, what's important in there regarding governance of a tenant, what are typically use cases for PowerApps. So when should I use PowerApps or flows and when it's maybe not a good idea to use them. Then my main part is then governance. Why is it important and how can you do governance? And I will show you two ways to do it. One way is with PowerShell and to more or less develop your own governance solution portal. And there's another part at the end, that's the Center of Excellence. That's a free, let's say, tool coming from Microsoft, from the Microsoft, let's say, community and Microsoft members that allows you to see what's happening in your Power Platform as well. And of course, it's maybe a good idea to combine that information, that data, with other governance tasks you have in your tenant. So the whole idea here is, how do I secure my tenant? How do I see what's going on in my tenant? And this is what I'm going to talk about this next 15 minutes. So I start usually with this slide. I think you're very familiar with that. It's just an overview of what is the Microsoft Power Platform. Well, it consists of various services. And of course, we all know Power Apps and Power Automate and Power BI being part of the Power Platform. But with Ignite 2019, I think the Power Virtual Agents also became part of the Power Platform. And we see the Power Platform also has these three components we see on the bottom here, which is the common data service, which can be used or which we will use for the Center of Excellence later. We can use the AI builder, and of course there are the data connectors, and all of that is more or less packed into a so-called environment. So whatever we do in the Power Platform is hosted in this environment here. We will see that from a management perspective, that's important. And we have, for example, flows in here, the Power Apps, of course, the connectors, the premium and standard connectors. And also it's important, how do I set up this environment and how do I set up the DLP policies for that? So we will have a look at that in some seconds. The important part here is that we can manage multiple environments. So how can we do this? Well, we can do it with the admin platform, with the admin portal platform. And let me show you how this looks like and what's important from my perspective here. So I simply open a browser here and go to AKMS Power Platform Administration Center. And if I'm a Power Apps administrator, I have access to that platform here. And here you see the list of environments. So every flow, every Power App is hosted in here. And I should define as an organization how my environments look like and who has access. So let me show you the first important thing from a governance perspective, what you should do in here. You should go to this small gear icon in the top right corner and go to the Power Platform settings. Why is this important? Because here you can define who is able to manage environments, sandbox and trial environments. You can see there's a type here in this column saying sandbox or production or default. And here you can, or you should define who is able to use which environment. And this is my first recommendation. You should restrict the usage of the management access to the environments to specific administrators, and not say everybody in my organization can create environments as he likes. That's maybe not the best idea, especially in large tenants and in large organizations. It's better to say only specific administrators, only specific members of a group can manage or create environments. So that's the first important tip from my side. So once you have created an environment, you will see them in a list here. You can go to the settings here, for example, the dev environment, and can see the properties of this environment. And here you can see what kind of PowerApps or flows or portals are hosted in that environment. And important here, you can define with edit who is responsible for that environment. And you can see I selected the security group here, which is on the right side here. Security group, restrict environment access to people in the security group. In my case, there's a group that's called @work_PowerApps. So I say only members of this group are allowed to manage this development environment. I also can change the type. For example, I can switch it from sandbox to production. So it's just a matter of resources that's running in the background here that changes it. Okay, that's one thing. When talking about environments, that's very essential for everything you do in the Power Platform. So the environment strategy should align to your company. But when you create environments, you have to keep in mind that you also have to look at the capacity, because every user gets a specific amount. I think it's 500 megabytes or so. That is added to the tenant for the capacity. So every user with a license, and this capacity page here shows how it looks in your tenant. So you can see which environments are using how much capacity and how much capacity do I have. So whenever you create a new environment, you need at least 1 gigabyte of storage of database capacity. This is used for the internal management of that environment. So if you have no storage left, you cannot create any new environment. So on the other side, that's my second recommendation. You always have an eye on that, how many storage you have available, and define your environment so that it makes sense for your organization. I come to that a little bit later again. So this is also an important part here, and here can see how it's calculated, how I calculate this total of 22.5 gigabytes, which I have available here, and currently I have used this 11.8 gigabyte storage here. Okay, with that, another thing that's important, that's my third recommendation, you should define what kind of connectors can be used from your users. And for that purpose, we can create policies. And you can see I've already created 3 policies here. One of them is a developer policy. Let's have a look into that. So I added that policy. It applies to 3 environments here. So the first step, I give that policy a name. And here you see a list of the connectors. And Microsoft is very proud of having something like 400 connectors for PowerApps and for Flow, which you can use in for your own custom applications. And here's a list of these. Well, it's actually more than 400 now, as I see, because the non-business category shows us 419. So here you can define in these 3 categories which are essential, which means business connectors. So my recommendation here is to say, well, all the connectors that come with Microsoft that are standard connectors should be included into the business category, to say they can talk to each other. So for example, I can create a flow and say, I want to get data from my Azure AD and then write that data to an Azure Blob Storage. And this is compatible with that policy here. But it would not be compatible to mix connectors or data from connectors between business and non-business, or I cannot use blocked ones. So I can go to non-business, for example, say, okay, this connector, I have no idea what it is, Ecomeshtica or something like this. Let's say I don't know that, my users shall not be able to use that, so I add this to the blocked section here. So these are connectors which are not allowed to use. And again, these are non-essential connectors, and I cannot mix connectors between this or that category. So this would be the policy, my third recommendation here. Have a look, define your strategy, what kind of connectors your users shall use, and then you can define, I want to apply this policy to specific environments, which I do here to say, okay, add multiple environments, next, and then I can say, okay, I have these 4 environments which are not using that policy, but I apply to these three here, so I can go in here and say, okay, also please apply this to this or that environment, and then I say next, and this is it. So that's also a very important part, which should be part of your government strategy right at the beginning to really define your environment. So the Power Platform Admin Center allows you to do this, and you just have to have the role of the portal administrator, of the PowerApps administrator here, that you are able to define that. Okay, with that here, let's come to my next step. So talking about applications and what is the Power Platform for? When should I use Flow and when should I use PowerApps, or maybe when it's not such a good idea to use PowerApps? So I have one summary slide here, which I want to show you, showing when to use PowerApps from my perspective. So I'm working with PowerApps since the very beginning. So I think Microsoft introduced it in 2016. We had a session at Ignite where they showed us, okay, well, we have this new PowerApps concept, and this is what you can do with that. And you can see the check mark, the green check mark on the top right corner showing this is my recommendation when it's, from my perspective, a good idea to use PowerApps. So my first part here is access. So whenever you have a scenario where you say, I have users who have a work account and I can provide them with a license for PowerApps or for Flow, PowerApps or Flow is a good idea to use. Maybe a not so good idea is if you say, okay, I have 50 vendors and every vendor has 100 users and they must have access to a specific application which I provide for them. But then you would need to create the users or add the users as guest admins, give them a license so that they have access to a PowerApp. So that's maybe not the best recommendation. The next part is standard connectors. So as in most of you might know, the connectors usually provide only a specific amount of data. They deliver only usually 500 records. And if you use the SQL Server connector, for example, that's a premium connector. You can set it up and configure it that it uses up to 2,000 records, but not more. So whenever you have a scenario where you say, okay, I have a PowerApp created and I want to run through my hall, checking various machines, and for every machine I say, okay, this machine is okay or needs maintenance or something. It's usually not a problem to work only with a couple of hundred records. But if you have, let's say, an IoT solution, let's say an air conditioning system that sends data to the cloud every, let's say, second or every minute, you have maybe 10,000 or 100,000 of records. So that would not be the best approach to use a PowerApp to visualize that data. Of course, you can do it if you create a custom connector. But again, the idea of the PowerApps is that you have a solution that's usable for mobile or tablet usage. And also standard connectors means access SharePoint, OneDrive, Excel, Azure AD, mails, these things. So for that, it's really perfect from my perspective. Next part is simple applications. So if you have an application that has multiple screens, let's say you plan to have 50 screens and every screen has, let's say, 20 controls on it, like lists or labels or buttons or something like this, that's summarized up to a lot. So Microsoft has recommendations for that as well, and they say you should not have more than 500 controls in your whole Power application. So why is that? Well, the reason behind that is that in the background, everything you defined in the designer is a JSON file, and that is rendered as a web application with React and JavaScript in the background. And of course, the browser needs to load every component, every control, and needs to render that. So you shouldn't have too many controls, too many screens in your Power App. And the last part here, when to use Power Apps, from my perspective, that's also important to have some guidance for your users. So you should define your environments, you should train your users and say, well, if you create your Power application, these are the recommendations, what I just listed, but I also will show you how you can do that, how you can work with that, how you can deploy it, or what is the process to deploy this application in my organization. So users also need to have guidance and training and, of course, best practice tips. So what is a good example for a Power App that makes sense? So let me show you that quickly. If I go to the Power Apps here and I switch the environment to my dev environment here, and I go to the applications. For example, here's an application, maybe some of you know, that's a so-called device order application, and that was one of the first samples Microsoft provided to show you how PowerApps work, for example. And this application consists of 2 screens, and they allow me to order a new device, in that case a notebook for my job, or so when I enter the company, for example. So this is, oops, let's fix. Well, it's actually not really important that I have this connection here, but anyway, let's fix it and let's see how this application looks. I simply run it here. So this is how it works. So I'm in this location, for example. In this location, I can order this hardware, and then I can say I'm interested in this here, and then select this and maybe this and this, and then I say compare these 3 items here. Then I've list a collection with items in here, and then, for example, I want to order this device here. You can see these are really outdated devices, but that's not the topic here. It's just as demo data, and then I say I start a flow with an approval process. My manager is Martina, so I want to order this device. So from my perspective, that's a really good example for such an application that makes sense to develop it as a Power application. So let's come to the next part here. What's maybe not a good idea to use a Power App or a flow? You can see the red X in the top right corner here. So the first thing, I already mentioned that if you have external users, or if you don't have a Power Apps license for your users, like vendors or similar, to say, okay, for my vendors, maybe I have another solution like a web application or something like this that doesn't cost me a license as an organization. So that's very important right from the beginning to think about that. The next part is that usually you want to restrict the number of connectors, the premium connectors, for just your Power users or key users or for specific departments, for example. So if you want to access, let's say, SAP or SQL Server, or unfortunately also HTTP, which HTTP from my perspective is like the Swiss knife, you use it for everything. If you need that connectivity, maybe it's a good idea to think about LogicApps as alternative, which I usually do. So if I say, okay, I have 1,000 users in my organization and they shall have access to a specific data, and that data, there's an HTTP endpoint, I need to send the data there. Maybe it's a good workaround to send data with a standard connector to a SharePoint list, and then have a Logic app or an Azure function or something like this that takes the data from there and connect and sends it to another system. Just to keep in mind that every user needs a license for premium in that case. So that's my personal workaround. Not saying that premium connectors are bad, they offer great functionality, but of course you have to keep in mind the economical standpoint as well. Also, what I discovered, complex applications. So if you have really complex applications, and I have a sample after that in some seconds, it's maybe not a good idea to implement that with a Power App, especially when you need permissions in that applications, or if it's really a very dependent application. And my last part here is performance. So Power Apps are no native apps, which means, I mentioned it before as well, they're rendered as web application. This takes some time. So if you really need a performant app and you have a complex scenario behind, maybe it's a better approach to create a native application for a phone, let's say, or a web application, or even a native application for Windows or any other system. So what could be a Power application that's too complex? So I have this sample here because we got this requirement. It was in Springer, so where a customer said, actually, I need a very simple solution, but can I implement that? And we thought about, well, actually, we could use it with, do it with Power Apps. And then we looked at it, and then the designer drew that here, what you see currently in my screen. You can see there are multiple steps here on the left side. Let's say I have a form, and that form is very long. It has a lot of objects in there. I have multiple selections in here. I have small things like a progress bar. I have dependencies, and I have also permissions in here. And if I go on with that, they wanted to have a history, wanted to see, okay, what has changed since the last person saved that record, and you can see it's long, and we also have implemented that. So we developed that as a web application later, and we were happy to do it, just to show you also the other side. that it's maybe really depending on the use case if you use Flow or PowerApps or not. Okay, with that, this is more or less my summary to that section. Always keep in mind when to use that technologies. They are great for, let's say, small applications, for fast applications, to have a kind of self-service technology where departments or power user can create their own applications. But if it's too complex, maybe think about other solutions as well. Okay, so with that, let's come to my main part. What is IT governance? So I want to dive into that a little bit because IT governance is important for many customers, or let's say for all customers. So currently we got a lot of requests in our company from organizations using Microsoft 365 saying, well, I have Microsoft 365, but I have no idea what's going on in here. So how can I control what my users are doing in here, which kind of services they are using? What can I do to control that? So with that, I have this small, well, let's say animation here. Microsoft 365 governance is a lot of things. So first of all, there's governance for teams and groups, for SharePoint, for, of course, change management. How do I train my users? Governance for identity access, who has access to what resource, also with Azure. We can use it for stream as well, or for live events and so on. So there are a lot of, let's say, topics which should be covered when talking about Microsoft 365 governance. I want to concentrate on Power Platform and a little bit on identity maybe here. So let me show you my best practices here. So the first thing we already have seen, use the Power Platform Admin Center to define the rules, to say I have a policy, I have environments. This would be my second part here, or I define the policies, what we saw before. I activate the activity logs in the protectionoffice.com portal so that I have access from a governance perspective to the logs to see, okay, what happened. This is important, especially then for later auditing or so. And we should have some processes, what we do with that log data here. Also important is that I should define people who are responsible for a specific thing, like, okay, you're responsible in your department for all the makers that define or that create PowerApps, for example, and so on. And the last part here, which will be my last topic here, Power Platform, the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So if you have a look at the environment strategy, so this is how Microsoft usually recommends it, or they say, okay, that's one possibility what you could do here, to say, okay, in my default environment, which by the way, you cannot configure, unfortunately, or not really, you cannot restrict access to that, unfortunately. We have everyone can create an application in the default environment. So you cannot change that, but you can rename the default environment and say, okay, well, this is my test environment or so, because that's a little bit, that's a thing. If I go to my PowerApps platform, so let me just go to make PowerApp or to PowerApps.com. Usually, I just close that and I sign in here. You land in the environment, in the default environment, as you can see on the top right corner. So a user that is not trained, of course, will create his new application in the default environment. And then you have to explain him from an IT perspective, from a governance perspective, well, that's nice, but that's not how it works. You have to hand over that application to me. I'll show you how I can do that. And then we deploy it to a production environment or similar. So this is more or less what this graphics here shows, to say, okay, you should have some rules to say, we have a development environment, maybe per department or so, but there shouldn't be too many environments. We have a dev team security group, where we say, okay, that's a critical project development. Since some weeks, you can also deploy your applications with the Azure CI/CD pipeline, which is also interesting. So you can automate the deployment process as well. So this is also very important to define, if possible, from the beginning. So that's just one possible way how you could define that. There's an URL for that. I'll show you that. I have that in my list later. Okay, so management environment and apps with PowerShell. How could you do this for your organization on your own? Well, there are some ways you can do it with these methods here. sorry, this actually I wanted to show you that with PowerShell. So let me start that here and have a look at my Visual Studio Code here. So I open that and you can install the PowerShell modules, the Power Platform modules. And I have that here in my GitHub. So let me go to that GitHub Toni Pohl, that's here. And I have a repository that's called Power Platform Governance. And I think here I have, if I go to the PowerShell, this is what I'm going to show you, install. Yeah, that's the thing that was missing. The first thing, I increased it a little bit. You need to install the PowerShell modules. So simply run install module, and then you can see there are 3 modules which you can use. Usually you need only the PowerApps administration module. You get it from the PowerShell gallery and the PowerApps PowerShell module here. So this is how you can install them. And this is also important, they require PowerShell version 5. So they're not ready currently. They're not available for the new PowerShell.NET, for the .NET Core PowerShell. So you really have to run it in that environment, in the, let's say, classical PowerShell environment. Okay, so if you want to check what you have on your machine, then you can simply check this here with the get install module. Okay, once you have installed that, you need to log in to the PowerShell environment, and you can do this here with add PowerApps account. There's one thing I need to mention here. So actually the plan is if you want to run something automatically, it's usually the best approach to use an application on a secret or a certificate to authenticate as an application. Unfortunately, this does not work currently. So it's, as far as I know, it's on the list that Microsoft will add that functionality, but currently you have to use a user and a login. So I already authenticated here with my multi-factor account here. So the next part is I want to get data from the Power Platform here. So I simply go to that script here, and that's also part of my GitHub repository. Just to show it that quickly, I just go back, and here you see that modify app roles here. So I've packed some commands in here. So let me show you that what we do here. So the first thing, let's see if I'm not timed out. Let's find out. Okay, it works. What kind of environments do I have in that tenant here? So currently I'm a Power Platform administrator, and you can see I get back a list here of all my environments, starting with dev environment, COE environment, TP environment, and so on. So if I want to work with the default environment, I can simply use this here, get admin Power App environment default, or if I want to work with a specific one, in my case, I decided I want to go for the dev environment, which is this here. So I simply use that ID here, A19C something, and to say I want to get data from that environment here, or I want to work with that ID here, with that specific ID here. If I want to work with that environment, I need the environment ID, and the environment ID here is currently, you can see it here, packed in that internal object here, and you can see there's this ID property here, and if you want to get the ID, I can get it like what I do here. I split it by the last backslash here. So I say I want to have the environment ID, which is this one here. And now I can say, give me all the applications that are existing in that environment. So I simply run this here, get admin Power App from this specific environment. Otherwise, I would get all the applications from all environment. In my case, I'm only interested in a small number of applications here. You can see it's currently reading that response here with the get admin Power App for that environment. And actually that apps format as a table should do an output for that. And you can see there's a handful of applications which are living in this environment here. So you can more or less create your own governance with PowerShell and say, okay, I get the data or I manipulate the data and then I do something with that. For example, I write it to a Power BI or so, and then I send the data to me automatically. So here we have a list of all the data that's in that environment. Let's have a look in our browser here. So we no longer need that one here. Leave this PowerApps environment here, talking about the development environment. Let's go to the applications. And this is what we see in PowerShell as well. So for example, you can see there's an application demo app 5 that was created or at least modified by Toni Pohl an hour ago, and it's a Canvas app. So this is what we should see here as well. Somewhere there should be this demo app 5, which is this one here. I just selected it with my mouse here. So of course you can also export that data to, let's say, a CSV file so that you can continue work with that. Now I've created this app CSV here, and now I can use that data and process that with other tools or so. In my case, well, let's see, we have 13 apps in that environment here. If I'm interested in one specific app, let's say I take the demo 5 here, I simply filter for that. So now I have this application C2A something in my hand. And now let's have a look who has access to that. So I can use the get admin power app commandlet here, say I'm interested in this one application in that environment, and then I say, and that output here, let's use get admin power apps role assignment and see who has access to that application. So what's happening now, we see, okay, this app here is currently used by 2 users. So we have one owner, that's me, that's Toni Pohl, and I have a second user, that's Martina Grom, and she has the permission. The application is shared with her, so she can view, but she cannot edit that application. If you want to modify that, so let's say, for example, the demo app 5 here owned by Toni Pohl, that user left the company. And from a governance perspective, you need to ensure that another person is responsible for demo app 5, for example. So how can you do that? Well, actually very easy with PowerShell. You cannot do, by the way, you cannot do it in the GUI. So you have no option here to say this application is now owned by another person here. So that's simply not possible. So you have to use PowerShell or other tools for that. And that's a typical scenario we have often, that users leave the organization and there are orphaned objects left, and somebody has to take care of that. So you can do that here with PowerShell. So we say we have another user, so I need the user ID. I could use Azure AD commandlets, so the EZ commandlets, for example. In my case, I've already looked up the user. Her name is Bianca Pisani, our demo user. So that's her user ID. So let's run that and assign that value to the variable here. And now I can say, first I add permissions to the app for that user. And this is what I do here. So we say, okay, that user gets the role can edit for that application here. So let's do this. We should now have given Bianca access to that application. That's the same thing what would happen if you go here to the application and click on the share button here and say, okay, now I add, and we should see there's Bianca already added here. So that's exactly the same thing. So that's very useful with our PowerApps. And now we say we change the owner and say, okay, the new owner of this application is Bianca. So this should work for a second or so, and actually, usually instantly, we can see we get a result here. And if you look back at our browser, so demo app 5 now, or was owned by Toni Pohl, and simply refresh that page here by pressing F5, we will see that we now have demo app 5 is owned by Bianca Pisani. So this worked very well, and now I no longer have access to that application because now the new owner has more or less the management permission for that application here. So this is how you can do it with PowerShell. You could also remove a user with the remove admin PowerShell. And now the last part, do it with PowerShell as well. We already have seen it in the portal. We see, okay, these 3 persons here have now these permissions, and you can see Toni Pohl, he only can view that or use this application, but he no longer has access to that application as an editor. So more or less what you can do in the portal, you can do even more with PowerShell, and this is a great way to automate it. Talking about automation, just want to show another thing here. In that case, that's a demo tenant. I've created an Azure automation account, and that automation account, I did it for our bootcamp last Friday. It's called, excuse me, it's called M365 Dev Bootcamp. So if you look into that here, I have added some variables here where I say, okay, this is the user I'm using to connect to the Power Platform. This is the password. And then I have a storage key attached and say, okay, I want to write that information about my Power Platform into a storage. And let's have a look at the runbooks. It's a PowerShell runbook that's called Get Power Platform Apps here. And I started because usually it takes some time to spin up the virtual machine to inject that runbook here and the environment variables. So this usually runs about a minute or so. So let's see if I click refresh. Again, it takes usually some seconds, up to a minute or so. It should initialize. And what does it do in the meantime while it's running? Let's have a look and click on the edit button here. We see what's happening here. So first of all, we define some variables and say we want to get information from the Power Platform into the environment CSV, app CSV, flow CSV, connection CSV, and we protocol the data at the start. And then we authenticate here. We say we want to get the admin data here, and I've added some comments in here because I tried what I mentioned before. I tried to use an Azure certificate or a secret or an application, but it currently does not work, unfortunately. So you really have to use a user and a password for that. So this is where I authenticate here as a user and say, okay, that's my endpoint. And then I say, now this what we have seen before, get the environments and please write these environments into a log variable, which is log NVV with a delimiter and blah, 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 UTF-8 and so on, which is this one here. That's my current file. And then I do the same here for the connections that are available, write it, also I export it. Then I say I create an own table here with all the application data and how old the applications are and so on, and then do the same for flows here. And at the end, when I'm done here, I'm here and say I want to use a storage here, and now I write that data to which is already existing in the virtual machine in a CSV file. I write it to an Azure table storage here. So this is what's happening here. So you can see I write that to that table here. So let's go back to my application here. And refresh it. Let's see. Okay, it completed. So this was the run that I just executed right now. Let's see if we still see the output here. We see I had some right outputs in that script here, and this is what we see here. So we get some data and we have a look at that. Have there been any errors? No errors, no warnings. Okay, that all looks good. Let's have a look at the storage key here. So I go to the variables here, storage name, that's my M365 Dev Bootcamp 13, and I already opened my storage explorer here and connected to that Azure table storage. And you can see I have a blob container here and a container data. And that data, if I refresh it, we should see that we just created some files here. How do these files look like? So I double click on them. And then we should see the same data for the full tenant. In that case, it's a different tenant, so we will get different data, but you get the idea here that I can continue to work with that data and process that data that will be opened here, in my case, in Excel. And this is what we get here for the application. So in that tenant, for example, there are only 2 applications, and you can see who is the owner of that. The environment name, is it a feature app, is it a hero app, and internal data connection string as well. And that's also important, especially for things like not only for apps and Power Apps and flows, but also for connections, because sometimes connections simply forget their credentials. So to check out, is the connection still valid? So if I double click on that here, let's see what Excel shows us here once it's opened. So we see these are the connections that are used. So I can, for example, do a report, what kind of connections are used. You can see in my case, I'm using Excel, I'm using connections. Here's the provider on the right side. Oops, here we go, logic flows, flow push, and so on, Power Apps button, what's the trigger of that, and so on. So that's really interesting data. And what can you do with that data? So I have another sample here. So if I go to that browser again, and I've created an Azure function here. That one is made in C#, but how you implement it with PowerShell or .NET or something else doesn't matter here. And I have some functions here. So one of them is called start user sync, for example. And this start user sync, runs through the tenant and gets all the users, and start user groups gets all the groups and teams and so on from the tenant, and write that to the Azure table storage as well. So if I go back to my table storage, we have just created these files here. If I look at tables, you see there are tables for users, for example, group statistics and so on. So this is what these Azure functions do. They get the data, write it to an Azure table storage, but in that case to a table and not to a file. And now I can use, for example, Power BI and visualize that data here. So if I open that here, that's just the example here. I can create a Power BI file and say, okay, that's my dashboard. In my tenant, I have 31 users, 29 of them are internal, 2 are guests. I have 11 groups. Out of these groups, there are these teams here and so on. And that's interactive to us. So I can see in that tenant, if I click on teams, I see there are 4 teams here. And with the same principle, you could use the data from the environments, from the Power Platform. What kind of applications do I have? Who are the owners of that application and so on? So we could simply add that data to one Power BI to, let's say, facilitate the life of the administrator to have all of the data about his tenant at a glance in one dashboard. And once that dashboard here, the Power BI dashboard is published, we can subscribe to that dashboard and say, I get a weekly report. How is the data in my tenant looking? How does it look like? How many users do I have? How many applications do I have? How many users left the company? How many are deleted, for example, and so on. So that's the idea. If you want to, let's say, develop your own environment portal or your own processes for developing specific use cases. So this is more or less the key. As a, let's say, IT pro or developer, you can very easily use these technologies to perform these tasks. Okay, with that, let's come to my last part when talking about automation. That's the Center of Excellence. Maybe some of you already know that. From my perspective, it's a very cool tool. It's a free tool Microsoft provides. And you can start using that with the AKMS COE starter kit. And how does it look like? Well, let's go to the URL here. So go to my browser, AKMS COE starter kit. This is really the start for that. And you can deploy that solution, which is a summary of flows, PowerApps, Power BI, and some other, let's say, things in your tenant. And it is usually recommended to create an own environment for that. So if I go back to my PowerApps and I switch to the environments, you can see there's one environment that's called COE, Center of Excellence. So I created an own environment for that. And if I deploy it, if I click to the solutions, you can see what is deployed in that environment here. And this consists of a number of, let's say, tools. You can see there are some core solution tools. If I click into that environment and solutions, and in solutions, nothing else than a collection of flows and Power Apps. So let's have a look in here. Core solution. Let's see what's in that package, in that solution, which is a zip file in reality. Once it's loaded, we see there are some tables and okay, that's maybe not so interesting. Actually, I wanted, maybe it was the governance components. Yeah, here we see a little bit more. So this solution consists of flows, consists of tables, model-driven app, environment variables, and so on. The nice thing here is you can filter. So for example, you can filter for the environment variables, information that is used from the flows and from the Power Apps here. And then you see, okay, these are variables, for example, if I want to archive a Power application to a SharePoint site, where is this SharePoint site hosted? So I can go into that and have a look. Okay, there is a URL, Cloud Expert something. So let me copy that and open it here. So that would be a SharePoint site that is used by a flow to automatically archive old solutions or old applications. So if I go to archive, there's a document library here showing that I already have archived some applications. You can see this was the name of the applications like barcode demo, app demo, and so on. And when did I archive that? So I removed these applications from the PowerApps platform environment and more or less store it here in a SharePoint site so that I can use it later if really needed. So that's a very cool feature of that Power Platform, and you can configure that. Talking about the setup of that here, the setup takes, well, you have to create applications, you have to set a lot of permissions and so on. So just if this is new to you, it takes something like some hours to deploy that. But if you're interested in that, it's a really cool thing, and it comes more or less for free here. And how does it look like? So if I go back to my applications, let's see what kind of PowerApps do I get here. I have installed, I think, more or less all of the components, which are these one here, the core tools, the governance components, the nurture components, and so on. So if I look here, we see, for example, the Developer Compliance Center. Let's have a look in that. So once it's installed, we see a Power application showing us what kind of Power Apps do I have in that tenant here. And you can see I can, first of all, I have these categories here. Let's show me the flows or the Canvas apps. So I have some Canvas apps, and I have a small point in here that's red or black, or maybe I have some green ones as well. No, I don't. But the idea is to give a business justification for every application, so that in my organization, for example, this here, Cell Calc Demo, if I click on the details here, you can see who is responsible for that, who has permissions to this application. The same thing what we saw with PowerShell, which is actually the same functionality. But here I have a nicely organized Power application showing me this application here was created at that time, was lastly used at that time. And now I can say this is my business justification, that's my HR tool, for example. And I can fill out more and more data here, and I simply select some of them here and submit that. And the idea is to really give a kind of compliance to that application here, to say I have more information about that application here. This should now maybe, okay, didn't change the color, didn't fill out all the fields, but the idea is to have additional information about the applications, who is responsible for it, why, what is the reason for this application, etc. So I really like that tool here. That's one of the Power applications, but we have more. So let's go, for example, to the Power Platform Starter app. Let's see what this provides here. By the way, the logo also comes from the environment variables here. So help me start. Obviously, I haven't opened that since a longer time here. Okay, let's have another one like the, what is a nice one? Yeah, we have seen the the PowerShell to change the owner of a Power app here. Okay, and as you see, I haven't opened it for some time here. So in that case, I select an environment, and then I should see all the orphaned apps or all the apps a specific person like Bianca, for example, where she's owner. So I could go in here and say, I now add permissions to that application. And that's also done in a Power App. So simply check it out, what kind of Power Apps you have here. The data that is used here from the Power Apps is collected with flows. So if I go to the flows here, you will also see a list of flows in that environment here. And these flows are reading the data and saving the data to the Center of Excellence. And the Center of Excellence is in reality hosted in a CDS here. So this is how it looks like. So we see the environment, we see the flow, the Power Apps, the policies, and the Center of Excellence reads all the data, writes that data to a common data service database, which is in reality a SQL database in the background, but we have no access to that. We don't have to manage that. That's done for us with CDS. And in that environment, we get that data, we can use that data in Power Apps or our own flow. So for example, we can create our own admin center, we can create our own dashboard out of that data, we can create our own applications with that data, so we can access that with a connection string. And the benefit here is that we also have automated processes like, for example, the notifications, this application hasn't been used in a longer time. And what we also saw is that we can archive applications. Let me show you that. If I open my Outlook, and these are emails I will show you here. Every owner of an application gets a notification. Well, attention, this application was created on a specific date or time, and that has been flagged for archiving. And you can see, okay, now you can decide, do I want to archive that or not? Let's say I still need that application. No, I don't want to get the notification any longer. And of course, that information is stored in the CDS. But let's have another application, just maybe looking for a dummy application, I think. Dummy approval flow, for example. This has last been used since August 2020, for example. And here say, okay, I no longer need that application, so I approve that. And I say, no longer need it. I submit that, and that object is removed from the Power Platform and is stored here in my document library. And this will show up once the flow is running and more or less packing that application and putting that as an MS app package in here into that library. So that's a feature I really like here because it comes out of the box with the Center of Excellence, and it helps you to clean up your environments. So I think that's really a useful thing. And the last part here I want to show you is the PowerApps, the Power BI dashboard, which I already opened here, which is this one. So, oops, it's just the wrong window here. I'll make it to full size. And here you see what that data that is stored in the Common Data Service, how is your environment looks like. So we see the environments here. We see who are the top app makers. I'm number one, yes. And I can simply click through the tabs here to see, okay, how is it going with my flows? How many, which persons are having which flow in which environment here? What environments do I have? So the same data we saw before with our own PowerShell script, but nicely visualized. How is it going with my environments, with my flows? We also see the Power Virtual Agents in here. Let's see, I think I created 2 or so some time ago. So they also show up here like my customer service bot or my IT support, my custom connectors, which I think I also have in that tenant, and so on. So you see there's a lot, you have a really large playground when using the Center of Excellence, and you get out a lot of data from that, and you get the automatic notifications. So that's a really, really cool thing to use and to implement. But again, you need to have some time to install that in your tenant. Okay, we've seen how this looks like, how it more or less works. With that, let's go to my final slides here. Planning your governance. My end. I hope, yeah, I have 3 minutes left. Perfect. So my recommendations when working with security and governance in your tenant, first of all, the most important phase is analyze what is already existing and plan your environments, your connectors, your data loss prevention policies, the architecture, the security. The second phase would be use tools like PowerShell, use tools like Center of Excellence or other tools. There's a lot out there just for the Power Platform. My recommendation would be try to combine it with, let's say, governance for identities, what we saw in my example here, that we have an Azure function running PowerShell or C# or whatever, getting data, writing it maybe to an Azure storage, and then use Power BI to visualize that, and maybe have one Power BI which is sent to you every week to get an overview of your tenant, what's happening in there. And the last but also important part here from my perspective is end user adoption. Don't forget to train your users, don't forget to give guidance to your users and to tell them how they should use the technologies that are available in Microsoft 365, which is, as we know, a lot. So my summary is really go through these steps here. If you want to check out the PowerShell scripts, this is my GitHub repository. With that repository, Power Platform Governance, I will add my automation account sample here as well. I will do this this evening, so it will be available today or tomorrow. Check out the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. And with that, I hope it was interesting to you. Here's my connection data. If you want to connect with me, I'm happy to extend my network to get interesting dialogues and discussions about technology. This is also my Twitter and my email account. So many thanks for your interest, and I hope it was useful. Chirag, many thanks for your invitation, and have a nice rest of the day.
Excellent, Tony. Thanks very much. That was, wow, what a journey from PowerApps to the governance. You covered a lot. some of it I think it kind of it just went above my head, but that's because it's constantly changing landscape, right? So yeah, no, thanks very much for coming and present at M365 UK and kind of going through and just kind of showing the good examples of what you had there. So yeah, I think we got a couple of questions, if I may. I can probably read them out to you. And I
Yes,
think
please.
quite sure. So one of the questions we had was from Tomislav. It's regarding a licensing side of things. So in the sense that when you compare with LogicApps, in terms of some of those connectors you have, they're pretty much standard connectors, whereas in Power Automate world, some of those same connectors are premium. So from your experience working with these connectors, everything else, are there any common set of connectors that you would perhaps use in Power Automate versus the ones in LogicApps? Are you able to expand on that?
Yeah, so actually my rule or my personal rule is I use Flow or Power Automate for everything that is connected with me as a person, like for example, getting data from somewhere, checking my mailbox when a new email arrives, I want to do something with that, or Twitter or so. So that's perfect for that purpose from my perspective. But if it's really a business process, I personally prefer the LogicApps because of two reasons. First of all, the licensing, I only pay for the runtime of the LogicApps and I can use every connector more or less. And the second part is I have a little bit more possibilities to change the background. So I can simply edit the JSON, for example, which I can't in the Power App in the flow I'm managing. So again, my recommendation is really use Flow for personal things and for business processes, use LogicApps.
Okay, no, that's a good way of doing it. I'll probably just wait a couple more minutes just whilst people are typing their questions or thinking about them. But yeah, I think from my point of view, I think I had just one question, which is that that magic word governance, and not just from a Power Platform perspective, but from the general Microsoft 365. So including SharePoint, Teams, and other services. And what I tend to find is that when I work with my clients, and typically, especially the small organizations, they've kind of embarked on the journey of embracing Teams, and then suddenly they're stepping into this big world of Microsoft 365, whether that's projects, SharePoint. And then do you get that kind of scenarios where they're trying to govern pretty much everything instead of individual workloads from Microsoft 365? How do you kind of overcome that?
That's an excellent question, Chirag. So, I have one slide which which I use often, showing a big construction site. And from my perspective, Microsoft 365 is very comparable to that because you have so many services and so many things you can do in that platform. So it's hard to find one way where say this is the best way or so. From my perspective and from our customers, we see that every organization is differently. So it really depends on the individual, let's say, rules and governance perspective that the organization has to find a kind of path through that. So, for example, we have customers who say, I don't want to allow any user to create PowerApps except in the default environment where I can't prohibit that. And other companies say, well, of course, they are here to support my users, these services, they are allowed to use it, but not for deployment. Then we have a process for that also. So again, as so often the IT, from my perspective, it really depends. But we have the large playground, so it really depends on the consultant and on the IT department what they really allow and what not.
Sure. Okay. No, that's great. I think we'll leave at that. So really appreciate it, and thanks for getting through those a couple of questions. And once again, thanks to you for being here and obviously, any questions we get further to that, we'll pass it your way. But presumably, we'll let the attendees have the slides and the recording of the session by this Friday as well. So, yeah, just wanted to say thanks for that, Tony. And so what we'll do is we'll basically take a break. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is Chirag Patel. I'm your moderator today here at M365 UK November edition. We've just had a session from Toni Pohl covering a journey from PowerApps to governance, covering all aspects of what to use when with Power Automate and PowerApps, as well as the general governance with Azure Functions and reporting and the framework around it. So we had a great session, some good questions there as well. And so next up, we have Ben Howard with us here. So a big welcome to Ben for taking up his time and being here with us to basically share us everything about Microsoft Project and Project for the Web. So we'll be going through the comparisons, the features and the demo plans and everything else on that. So for those of you, I'm just going to check my slides there, helps. So basically, we have a 50-minute session here. So do feel free to ask questions in the Q&A window, and obviously Ben will try and answer those towards the end. But until then, I'll just kind of hand over to Ben. So Ben and I have kind of known over about nearly 10 years, worked on a couple of projects there as well before, and pretty much I've learned a lot from his blog site at the applepark.co.uk, and generally I think in my view, and many of you I'm sure you'll agree, he's the authority as I'm concerned on the Microsoft project. So big welcome to you, Ben. Over to you.
Thanks, Chirag. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, good. It was a long time ago in that there London, wasn't it?
It was the luxurious retailer.
Yeah. So let's have a look. So I'm going to share screen 2, which should be this one.
Yeah.
So you should see again a bit of a dodgy photo of me. I did like the photo you had on your screen actually. That was taken quite a few years ago, but I still had a COVID haircut even then. And I've got a COVID haircut now. Okay, so we've got about 50 minutes. I probably won't take that long. About me though, I've been an MVP, Microsoft MVP for 13 years in Microsoft Project, which is a long time. So as you rightly point out, I probably know more about Project than the majority of people, but still not as much. I do have a website and a blog. I am an independent consultant and have been for, what are we, 2020? So yeah, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years, something like that now. So I go out and I implement Project online, and then latterly also did a lot of work around Power BI. So a lot of visualization and data visualization and data manipulation in order to, a bit like Project, in order to help people work through some of their business issues and understand where they need to make investments in some respects. I've run and created a whole set of online training courses in Power BI and actually latterly Excel. I don't know why. Oh, it's just easy to do. Pluralsight.com. So here's my first free giveaway. If we go over to a web browser and we nip over to Pluralsight. Pluralsight is a commercial video library if you want, but it's more than that. It's actually a learning platform that many organizations subscribe to. As you can see, they have, if you're watching this live, for the hundreds of you who are, then this weekend is a free weekend from Friday. This is American time, of course, November the 20th through to Sunday, November. Every single one of our 7,000 plus interactive courses, of which or 7,000 plus interactive videos, of which I own or produce 15 or so, 40 plus interactive courses, and a whole host of other content. So you've you've got 3 times 24, 72 hours to consume as much content as you want. If you do like kind of project stuff, then these are all my courses. I just did a quick search for Ben Howard. We've got some Excel stuff, we've got some Power BI stuff as well. So those are the 3 things I do. I mean, generally take a lot of effort to produce these sorts of. That's all well and good. Let's just pick up some slides again. You can follow me on the usual socials if you like, at Ben Project. You can email me. I don't mind emails on Project or Power BI. LinkedIn, do join me on LinkedIn, and I've got a YouTube channel as well. I've just posted on there today about a session that I did earlier today. So that's kind of me and where I come from and what I get involved with. Okay, so in terms of, more importantly, today, the next 40 minutes, what are we going to cover? We'll have a look at a brief history of project. We'll also check out the current licensing options. Not a big fan of licensing, but you need to know what's included in your Office subscription license and what might not be. Then we'll do some demos. We'll have a look at P4W. That's the thing with Project for the web. That's the new version of Project. So this session, of course, is called Project is Dead. It's a bit of when a king or queen used to die, the succession would be, the king is dead, long live. I didn't get that until I was about 20 because I'm a bit slow, but so long live project, or project's dead, long live project. So we're going to do a demo of P4W, which is Project for the web. We'll also do a demo of something called roadmaps, which is a kind of program portfolio view of different projects, and then we'll look at teams. I'll look at Project for web and roadmap apps. We'll also and we'll look at Power BI reporting using Power BI. So all of those.
Ben, can I interrupt, please?
Yeah.
Hi, just wondering, I think the connection seems a bit flaky. Pretty sure it's not from my end, and I'm just wondering that because you got your video on, it might be chewing up. So yeah, should we try turning it off, the video?
Yeah, go for that. I do have to say, it's a Dis Virgin, but I've had issues with my Virgin cable over the last 2 days. So if perchance I disappear, Chirag, I'll get back on very quickly.
No problem. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I may well go to data on my phone, which is what I did earlier today. Scary in the real world. Okay, so that's the agenda. Let's just have a quick look at this. Now, this slide says, put your hand up if you're under 36 years old. Well, I can see you all at home kind of doing that because the majority of this audience will be 36 years old or less. Why is 36 important? Well, it's important because that's how old Project is. Project was kind of born, if you like, in 1984. So why do I care about this? Well, I care about it because it gives us the reason as to why we kind of Project is dead, long live the new project. So back in 1984, Microsoft Project was created. It was an MS-DOS application. It was owned by Microsoft from the very outset. They created version 1. They subcontracted it actually, but they subcontracted it to a company version 1. And that's how old it is, amazingly. Most people maybe not even know what MS-DOS is. I spent a long time playing around with that. Here's then the timeline of the important focus areas of projects, if you like, or important timeline items. In 1990, it was renamed version 1, Project version 1, which was Windows 16-bit application. 95, we had Windows 32-bit. Windows, not all of Windows was 32-bit. Project Windows 95 was a 32-bit application, but you know, Christ, I do remember it being released. In 2002, we had this thing called Project Server, which arrived on the scene, which Microsoft actually bought from somebody else, but they created Project Server. That went through various iterations: 2003, 2007, 2010, and then in 2013 we ended up with Project Online, which is a version that's put into the web. And back in 2018, a couple of years ago, Microsoft came out with something called Project Home and Roadmaps. And the important thing about both of those applications is they are modern browser-only based applications. Everything up to that point had a full fat Windows client, what we used to call Microsoft Project. That was a full fat Windows client that got installed on the desktop. In 2019 and 2020, now, well, in 2019, Microsoft released the new project, which we call Project for the Web. And again, to that, and then very recently, within the last 2-3 weeks, we've got Teams integration for both Project for the Web and Roadmap. So that's a brief history of Microsoft. That should tell you where we're going and where we're kind of or where we've been from, and where we're going to. Let's just compare and contrast the two projects. So the historic Microsoft project is an application. WinProj.exe is actually the application that runs on your Windows desktop. It is a legacy app. It's 36 years old, we know that. And therefore, Microsoft took the decision a little while ago to almost stop significant development on that application. It was too hard for Microsoft to rewrite that whole application so that it becomes a modern application, so that it fits into Microsoft's modern infrastructure. It fits into the Power Platform infrastructure, i.e. it fits into the whole common data service. So that was too hard for them to do. So they took a decision to create a new application, if you like, which we call P4W, Project for the Web, and I'll include roadmaps in here as well. So these are browser-only applications. There is no Windows client, which means, of course, they work very well on mobile devices as well. It's a new application. It was built from the ground up, and we're able to use all of the new Microsoft infrastructure, such as common data service. And what that allows us to do is integrate into tools such as Teams, but also in the future it allows us to integrate between to-do tasks and look to do and project. Now that's not there yet, but you know, it will be along the line, in the same way that today I can take a planner application, I can take my tasks in Planner and they'll appear in my to-do list, etc. The modern infrastructure of the lack of the ability of WinProj.exe, the old application, to support the new modern infrastructure was the reason that Microsoft created a Project for the Web. Okay, so if we have a look at the licensing around this, I like this slide. Microsoft licensing is both complex and fluid, and it is. But on the URL there at the bottom, we've got a list of the features that's included in each license, and of course, you will have access to these slides, so you can click on the slides as well. So let's have a look at what we kind of get out of the box. So here's the URL that I showed you. It lists in the main a section of Project Web app features and then different Office licenses. So we've got Microsoft Office 365 licenses, and then you've got some project plan licenses known as Plan 1, Plan 3 and Plan 5. It's a big screen, a big list of features here, which I'm not going to The good news is that if you, regardless of the project license, if you don't have a project license, then you have the ability to view projects that you have been this is based upon 365 groups. So if somebody in your organization has a P3 plan and they're creating some projects, they can share those projects with you and you can see those projects. Okay, if you have if you yourself have any of the other plans, then again you'll give different access to create projects in Project for the Web and consume those projects and roadmaps and all the rest. And Plan 5 kind of goes up to some of the existing Project for Web and Project Online licenses. Okay, so reasons do I need? Let's just try and make it simple. If you have an Office 365 subscription, then you have the Project for Web plans and roadmaps. If you have a Plan 1 license, then you can create Project for Web plans and view roadmaps. If you have a Plan 3, then this is equivalent to what we used to call the old Project Professional license. So you can create Project Online app or plans, as well as Project for Web plans and view and create roadmaps. And if you have Plan 5, you get the whole lot, including admin rights, etc. So let's go to the next slide where we basically crack on with a demo. So let's just do this. Quick view on time, past. So back to the browser. We are done with plural weekend this weekend. That's all well and good for you. I'm on this page here, which is project.microsoft.com. In fact, let's come out of that page and just go directly there. Okay, project.microsoft.com, or of course you can go to Office 365 and log in. From the waffle icon, of course, what I'm looking at here is this project icon. This is Project for Web, not to be confused with Planner and not to be confused with Project Online, which is something completely different. Okay, Project Online being our old winproject.exe. So if I click on project, effectively, I'm taken to project.microsoft.com. I'm already logged in and authenticated as you would expect. So within the browser window here, we've got a few things that we can see. Firstly, I've got some favorite projects. So this Olympus did as a project last accessed an hour ago. I've also got a roadmap called Pack Commercial, and I have PWA Project Web App Projects. This is the old Project Online. You'll notice of these three entities I can access from this. Towards the bottom, then we've got our list of projects shared with me by somebody else. Okay, so I don't have any projects or roadmaps that have been shared with me, and I've obviously got a ton that I've created. And then towards the bottom, I can actually click here, which says go to Project Online, outside of the scope of this demo, but just so that you're aware, the ingress to Microsoft Project now is through project.microsoft.com. Let's go here and create a new blank project. Okay, again, a web browser opens. This couldn't be simpler, and I can navigate around here and do different things. Let's just give this project a title. So instead of Untitled Project, let's just call this M365 Project. So we give it a name. I'm logged in, so I become a project manager. We can choose a start date. We've got some other information in this field. For those of you who were familiar with Project Online, you'll know that you had to check in and check out projects. All of that stuff has gone now. I'm also now presented with one of three views. I have a grid view, a board view, and a timeline view. So let's just go and add some tasks directly into the grid. So we can just click here, which says add a new task. So we'll just call this call it phase 1, prepare Well, we'll do some stakeholder analysis. And then we just might do speak to stakeholders. And then I might say phase 1 completed. These are just tasks that we can create. You can see I can go and quite happily just type all of those little lot in, or that little lot in. We can do some other things in here as well. So if I'm going to speak to some stakeholders, we can assign that to a resource. So we might give that to me. So there's Ben Howard. I might give it to me and somebody else. I'm going to go and speak to the stakeholders along with my partner in crime, Maria. Okay, so let's just go and get. I've already said this is all based upon Office groups, and so that's what's going to happen now. When we add Maria into the team, if you like, the project. If you like, to an existing group, and this might be an existing team that you've already built in Teams, or I'll go and create the group. So let me just go and create a group. We could make this, we could change the privacy policy, etc. We'll just hit assign. So now I've actually got a group, and we can see Maria's assigned to this task along with myself. Speak to stakeholders. We could come in here and then just assign Maria to that task as well. We can put some durations in here. So speaking to stakeholders might take me a week, 1W. Writing report might take me 2 weeks. And we've got the ability then to go and add in some of the other columns. Okay, and we'll spend some more time on that. Okay, this phase 1 completed. I always like to think of that. Anybody who's seen me demo project before, I like to have some milestones in there. So that's going to be a duration of 0 days, which effectively marks that as a key, in my mind, a key milestone. So that's okay. One thing you'll see in here now is the ability to add in some new custom fields. So this is a new feature that's come in recently, and the types of custom fields I can have: a date, text, numbers, etc. And we'll just have this one as a text. In fact, we'll just have this as a yes, no. Have this as a customer task. Okay, so I want to flag which tasks have to be done by customers. So then why didn't that create customer task? Oh, there we go. Just took a little while. So none of these are customer tasks. Well, we'll involve our customer with writing the stakeholders. So that's all well and good. So what else could we do? That's the grid view. Let's go over to the timeline view, because this is a typical kind of Gantt chart. Phase 1, of course, would be a summary task. So let's just take these 3 tasks here, and I can multi-select these. Okay, so we've got that sort of functionality. And then by clicking on the options, a window pops out, and I can say, well, I'd like to make these tasks a subtask of phase 1. So you can see phase 1, this is running a little bit slowly. Yes, Chirag, my Wi-Fi is bad at the moment.
No problems.
Phase 1 because yeah, no worries. I think you kind of have to pause and say, but that's the problem of being on the web, of course, is that it doesn't always quite go as fast as you want. I can link these 2 tasks together just by joining them together, and then these tasks become scheduled. We'll link that one over to there. And then we have our typical Gantt chart. And again, I could come in here and I could then say, all right, let's start phase 2, which is, you know, requirements gathering or something. If I could spell. And phase 2, of course, sits at a higher level, so I'm going to promote that subtask. And we could go and add in other tasks and all of great stuff. In this, so we can get a compressed view of our project, if you like. And we could open the details of that, so we can get more information about an individual task here. So what we used to call the task information box. If this was completed, I could say, oh, that's 50% complete, and we could just add that in, and then bar becomes complete. Because we've got some resources assigned to this and it was a week long, then we can see that we've created an effort of 40 hours. We've got 80 hours remaining, etc. A total of 80 hours. Because we're 50% complete. Is it a customer task? No, we've got other things that we can add and perform in this data. So that's all okay. We can just close that now. Another way of just saying something's complete is just by clicking a little checkbox there. You'll see we get a nice little ping that comes up. So again, very familiar interface to my tasks and the other tools that we have in Office 365. So the grid and the timeline. The board is much more Kanban style tool. Buckets, and I can rename these buckets. So let's just have a look at bucket 1, and we'll call this backlog. Might be working in that sort of agile way. We might have this as up next, and then we might have this one as in progress, and then of course we might have a completed bucket. And I might ignore the timeline completely and just say, hey, let's well, firstly on here I'm hiding completed activities, but we could say speak to stakeholders is completed. Let's just do that. Writing report is up next, etc., etc. And we can move through these buckets in our Kanban type of way. Again, in terms of grouping these, we could just group by bucket, or we could say, hey, let's have a look at who they're assigned to. So here's the ones that Maria's got. Here's the one that Ben Howard's got. He's got one completed one. Here's unassigned. And again, we could just assign these different tasks to different people if we wanted to. We might have a look at that by progress or by finish date as well. So we've got some great ways of looking at this data. Okay, so this is our Power BI. This is our project online, and we can just build this up. A couple of other things we can do is, if I want to, obviously I can delete it once we've finished with it. I can also copy it. So this is the nearest we get at the moment to creating a template. I could set up a standard dummy project if you like, and then copy that and create my new projects from that. Okay, let's go back to on project for the web. I probably caught him just having a slurp of his tea. So let's carry on. Here we can see the recent M365 go-to-market project, and that's okay, that appears in there. But I did say this is part of the common data service. And so if I go over to PowerApps, this is all built in the same tool, then we should see that very same product or project here. Okay, so this is all part of the CDS. And if we go to tasks, then we could see, and in fact, we could modify that application here. So here's my tasks. Let's just add in a new task. We'll just call it task 2 for simplicity's sake. We've got all the same features though. Let's just make that a subtask, and let's assign that to Ben Howard. And of course, we could assign that to another user as well. So just so you know, this is completely integrated. I'll assign this to Andre into the team. So that's all well and good. So we're built you know, this uses the whole of the CDS to store everything. So it's hugely extensible. This is why it's a modern app. Now, one of the other things I did want to show you in Project was the ability to create what we call a roadmap. Okay, so we could say click on and create a new roadmap, or I could just add some new projects, this project to an existing roadmap. So I'm going to open up this roadmap called APAC Commercial. It's not got much on it. So let's just add a row. My row is just going to be M365 strategic projects. I'm going to make Andre the owner of that. In fact, no, let's make Andrea the owner. No, Andre's the owner. And let's go and connect to an existing project. So here's my oh, didn't like that. Now that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to connect it up to let's ignore that. Let's come out of here. Let's just go and create a new roadmap item. Okay. Okay, and let's just go to market project. Maybe it just took a little while to sync. Let's go and connect up to that project. So because this is the first time we've connected to that project, we're going to have to go and create some flows. That's just going to pop up here. We'll connect in, give that permissions. So our new roadmap can connect to this and multiple other projects, as you've seen. And once that's connected, what we'll do is place certain activities or tasks from that project onto this roadmap row, which is currently untitled. Okay, so here we go. So let's just say phase 1, add an icon there. And I'm going to take this milestone, which we now call a key date, and we'll put that on there, and we'll add both of those onto the roadmap. Let's just give this to Andrea to manage. That's very good. And the roadmap we'll just call 365. Okay, so I own the roadmap, but Andrea owns this portion of the roadmap. And you can see I've picked up key tasks from the M365 go-to-market project, and I can click on here, not right click, and I can set in the roadmap certain specific items. So I could say, oh, phase 1 is on track, but this key milestone is at risk of being missed. Okay, again, we can add multiple projects to the roadmap, and we can just then begin to share that roadmap, add it to a group, etc., collaborate and share around my organization. So that's okay. So we've got a roadmap, we've got some a P4W project. I wanted to show you a couple of other things. We should now have, because we created a team, and I'm in the web app of team here, a new team. Oh, sorry, we haven't yet got a new team, but we've certainly got a new group. So let's just go and create a new team. So we'll create a new team from an existing group or team. Most people will be familiar with this. It's a Microsoft 365 group, and we've got this M365 go-to-market project. So I've created the project first of all, and now I'm going to go and create the team based upon that project. And then what I wanted to show you was these two apps here. So if we add a tab, I've got an app called Project, and I've also got one called Roadmap. So if we click on Project, then what I'm able to do is add this app into Teams. and I can choose for project. There's my M365 go-to-market project, because of course this team might be running lots of projects, and we could manage and track and update that project just in here. We can say, hey, that's two is done. And if we go over to the board, we can do some other things. We move that over to there, etc., etc. It's all just one system. It's all integrated into the one tool. Okay, so we've covered off a very little bit to just show you that this is integrated into PowerApps, Teams, 365 Roadmap, and Project for the web as well. So what about reporting? Well, let's come back to this slide here, having done a quick demo there. Our reporting options are Power BI. That's how Microsoft report everything. So we're going to take our Project for the web data out of our Common Data Service and put it into Power BI, along with all of our other Common Data Service data, such as tasks and Dynamics data, etc. But also, if we've got Project Online, we can report with Project Online into Power BI as well. I'm not going to demo that bit. It is a separate data source, but we're able to do that. So let's now open Power BI, which is bizarrely closed on my desktop. So Power BI. And which one are we going to open up? None of those. Here we go. PBI, Project for the web. So that's going to go to my default store and go and bring down the data. Now, if we do a refresh on here, we'll notice we don't have any M365. We haven't got the M365 app in here, but if we refresh, then of course it will go and grab the M365 project, rather, not the app, and bring it down into Power BI, and then I could publish this Power BI report in the usual access the report on a mobile device and do all great reporting and sharing and collaborating on reports that you would typically do within an organization. So let's just see if this is going to bring this down within the next 30 seconds. Let's just go back to the slide. Slides become this template for Power BI is available on GitHub, and again, just search Office Dev Project Power BI templates, or have a look at the URL switch. Okay, so let's see if that has come down. That's still just downloading that, so we've got a few more minutes. Any questions yet, Chirag, whilst this one downloads?
Yeah, sure. We've got a couple of questions. First question we have from Andrew Doran. Does the winproj.exe have a sunset date, or will it still be with us for a while?
So does winproj.exe, the full fat client, have a sunset date? It's going to be with us for a while. Microsoft don't tend to just end of life a product as such. They kind of support it for 10 years and then they end of life it, don't we?
Yeah,
and you generally. Can go by project. Yeah, you can go by project 2019 today. So there's been no published sunset date for WinProj. So keep on using it if you're using it. You know, people say, what product should I use? Well, you should use the right product for you at the point in time. And if you get 2 or 3 years of value out of it, then that's probably the best thing to do. Yeah.
Fair comment. And very quickly, does the roadmap sit within the Microsoft 365 group like the project does? From Mark, that question.
From Teams, in Teams, yes. Yes, I didn't demo that, but if we'd added in the roadmap, yes, it would.
Yeah, great, yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Ben.
No problems. Here, therefore, I've just expanded, you know, I'm not going to teach you how to use Power BI, but we just focused in on this visual. Here's my M365 go-to-market, 69% complete. There was some effort in there, 6 tasks, etc. And if I clicked on the link, guess what? I would go out on another screen, of course. which I'm probably, oh, I am logged in on that screen. So let me just bring this into you. No, I'm not. Well, I'm logged in as a different user on that screen, but just to show you, it goes to project.microsoft.com and would show me that project. I'm not actually logged in with that client at the moment. Okay, so you can do, you can have a lot of great fun in Power BI, looking at projects and really providing a level of enterprise reporting which isn't available just using Microsoft Project. That enterprise reporting is not available with that. So your choices really are project for web for that. And there's some nice things we can do in here. I'm just going to scroll through, just see if we've got a set of key milestones in here. Portfolio milestones, that's the one I wanted. And here's my phase 1 completed coming in. So this is, here's my upcoming milestones in the next 30 days across all of the projects. But of course, we could sort that by project progress or project manager or some other type of enterprise field that we needed. Okay, so let's go back to the slides, wrap this little lot up. Let's just always like to wrap this up with what did we actually cover. Well, what we covered was the brief history of Microsoft Project, 36 years old. It may well reach 46, but I don't know. We had a look at the current licensing options, demo of people in roadmap teams, integration, etc., demo of reporting using Power BI, and that pretty much our time. Do connect up with the socials. Remember content, all 7,000 plus videos on there, and this I didn't mean that, but not yourself stupid with content this weekend. Okay, that's it from me. Chirag, any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say thanks.
You'd like to make.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Ben. That was a great session. Really, kind of a like a whistle-stop tour around the various elements of projects and kind of to get the best value out of the 45 minutes we've had. So no, really appreciate that. Many thanks for giving up your time and being here with M365 UK.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. We got one more question, if I may. Andrew Doran. And the question is, has the whole project data model been replicated in the new project for the web?
Okay, so the answer to that is no. So the new project for the web is today, and I can be quite candid about this, it's a very lightweight project management tool. So if things like baselines, different views, if you know about effort versus duration, if you know about effort-driven tasks, etc. None of that really has made it into project for the web yet. Microsoft's general idea is that they wanted to get an MVP, a minimum viable product, out to the marketplace, then get the feedback, and then start to add in the features and functionality that they know people are using in the full fat client and that they know people want based upon feedback on user voice. So if you want to see something new in Project Online, then get onto user voice to have a look at that and vote up the things that you want. So for example, there's no concept of a baseline at the moment. There's no concept of a status state. There's no button to say, let's update all of the existing tasks to the status state. So it's very much today a cut down version, but based upon the modern infrastructure, so that in 3 or 4 years time, it might reach a level of feature parity, which might say, hey, if you're an advanced scheduler, maybe you should just be using Project for Web because it's feature rich enough to do so, and it integrates into all of these other tools, and I've got an application form for it for my iPad, all of that stuff that was just holding WinProj.exe back.
Yeah, that's it is, and I think with large organizations, if they've been using like the project server and all those kind of on-prem type cloud solutions, then there's a lot to think about, isn't there, really, compared to say small organizations who may jump into Teams, for example, and then kind of use with the project for the web in that way.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, project management is so much more than just creating a schedule, which is all, WinProj.exe really did. A lot of modern project management is more about collaboration. We've got much more agile working. We've got working as we could, both of us could have edited that project at the same time. Given that we're hundreds of miles away, it's all stored on the cloud. We could edit it, we could share it. We've got that co-editing and co-authoring experience that you see in Word or Excel. Yeah. That just exists in the modern project now as well. It supports, if you like, the more modern, less structured way of working. However, if you're still going to go and build the equivalent of a Forth Road Bridge or some massive piece of infrastructure, let's face it, Project for Web's not going to cut it for you. So you still need a tool such as Microsoft Project or a competing tool. But, everybody uses Microsoft Project along with Excel and PowerPoint and Word. And it's just one of the tools you need. So again, it's about using the right tool for the right job. But yeah, if it's a big, hairy schedule, Project for Web's not going to cut it today. My view and my hope is that Microsoft Project will be around for several more years yet.
Great stuff. Well, I think with that, just want to say thanks, Ben. Thanks for answering those questions, and would love to have you again sometime in the future when things unfold. But yeah, I think just want to say on behalf of the M365 UK attendees, big round of applause from your virtual applause to Toni Pohl and Ben Howard for delivering great sessions today on PowerApps to governance, as well as the project for the web and the surrounding services around that. So with that, I'll just say thanks to everyone. And I've posted the link in the feedback, in the Q&A window. Please feel free out. It really helps Ben and Toni to at least tweak their presentations for future when things come along the way, and they can try and incorporate that as well. And then, as I mentioned, next month, 16th of December, is our next M365 UK event. So we have Patrick Guermonet and we got Gary Trinder as well. So we got great sessions there as well again. SharePoint Spaces, which has gone GA. So that's really going to be an interesting one. But also, if you're developing any applications, then how securely do you access those credentials? So that's another great session to look forward to from Gary as well. As I've posted the links in the Q&A again, so there is the recording slides will be made available. Try and bookmark those links. But also register on meetup.com/M365UK for the next 2 events coming up as well. And then in the feedback, if you're after any particular topics that you would like our speakers to present, then I can try and help you out. But also you'll find that on the website, if you're interested in also presenting, maybe tell a story of your implementation of any part of Microsoft 365, then you're also welcome to that as well. So would love to have you on board with that. But yeah, I think with that, it's a goodbye from me and from Toni and Ben again. So until then, be safe, take care. Thanks.